Hello everybody and welcome back to another crypto video. Now, very often when I am researching my daily crypto news, I come across theories and articles that talk about the Fed falling, the US government not being able to handle, and things alike. Now, very often I get the urge to just check out a little bit more or to look up some articles, and today I actually did. And I also want to take a little bit of a step into what I have found, what I'm thinking about, and kind of the struggle that I have almost every single day. Now, this is not at all a full story. This is just a step into the direction of what I often think about and what I research on a daily basis. And I just want to introduce you guys to what my thought process is and really not give you a full-on explanation about what is going on. So now that you know that, make sure you put in the comments section down below your favorite crypto coin, because after this explanation, if we got some time left over, I also want to talk a little bit about the XRP price, because it's looking pretty damn juicy. Alright, so first of all, the US debt clock. I mean, I've looked up this clock so many times in my life, and every time it surprises me once more. Here you can see the national debt for the US, and it's just, yeah, it's just so ridiculously huge in comparison to every other country. I mean, of course, next to the gross domestic product, GDP, it's not that strange. But still, the debt is so much. And if you look into it a little bit closer, you can see the U.S. national debt per person is actually $80,000, and per taxpayer, it's $200,000. Now, even though it's not a bad thing, just by definition that we have debt, to a certain degree, it's kind of strange. Like, why is there so much debt, and why is this all going on? And sometimes that makes me think about things like further, and I was like, you know what? If there's so much debt, there must be something wrong with the system. Because, I mean, 200,000 per taxpayer is really, really a lot. So what are they doing? How can this be going on? And I mean, for example, here, official unemployed is about 17.7 million. Actual unemployed is 30 million. I'm like, huh? I just keep thinking about all those numbers. It keeps going on inside my head. And that made me think about, you know what else is going on a little bit? Because, I mean, if you're into crypto, you very often, like me, think about money and think about the financial space. Because, I mean, that's not crazy. But you also most likely have thought about a crisis before, right? And that's something I think about very, very often as well. And I always like to make a big a difference or an understatement or whatever between the US and Europe, because I see them as two completely different entities. As interest rates are different, the Fed works really, really differently. Really, they're just two separate entities all together. So I would say those two are completely on different sides. And really, this crisis I'm talking about is global, but they would affect different markets differently. And one of the reasons for that is, more than the United States, the European economy depends on the banks to function. European companies get more than 2/3 of their credit in the form of bank loans. While American firms get less than 1/3 directly from banks, they raise the rest by selling corporate bonds or shares. There is no sign yet of banks' failures, in part because of the European Central Bank quickly flooded the financial system with cash. And most likely this last part is also not that foreign to you guys. I'm assuming a lot of you also know about stimulus and just money being put into the market. Well, one of those things is the recent stimulus check that was issued by the Fed. Once more, another $1,200 check. Yeah, and I'm personally not too much a fan of it, all right? I'm just putting it up right there. I'm not too much a fan of the stimulus, even though most likely it really is needed, because a lot of people need it. I mean, honestly speaking, a lot of people do need this money. However, with a lot of this stimulus and a lot of the quantitative easing also comes a question of, has the Fed lost control? And one of the main reasons for that is, of course, the interest rates that are acting pretty strangely, also the massive quantitative easing that's been going on, and also really the uncertainty that was even here before the big pandemic arrived. Because this article here is not from right now. It is actually from about 8 months ago. Fun fact, the gold price shot up $50 in the last 30 days during a time of the year when the yellow metal typically lays down to begin its summer nap. Funny, right? Summer nap for gold. The gold price just shot up $50. What that really means and what this all entails is, all right, gold did really, really good. And what does that really mean for us? Well, very often it means that people lose their faith in money. Wait, what? People lose their faith in money? That sounds kind of strange. Why do we trust money? It's not what you think. On the face of the American $1 bill, there is a public declaration. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. It is signed by the Treasurer of the United States and countersigned by the Secretary of the Treasury. And though few of us have ever met any of those gentlemen, all of us are willing to trust that the dollar bills we have in our pockets, or for that matter, the British pounds or Japanese yen, which are backed by an equal kind of promise, will work as currency anywhere. The reason we are willing to accept the face value of what it is, in essence, pieces of colored paper, lies in the fact that we actually believe that the promissory value that's printed on the paper is backed by the full institutional might of, in this case, the United States. In order to understand the strength of that belief and the paradox that lies at the very heart of it, consider that dollar bills, which are a manifestation of the power held by the United States government, are also used to buy the kit used by survivalists who reject any kind of governmental authority. Dollar bills change hands in the transaction of radicalized extremists purchasing weapons and ammunition that are to be used in their avowed fight against the same country whose currency they have used and whose government and authority they want to destroy. And dollar bills are used by competing nations like Russia who are locked in an ideological struggle across geopolitical interests. Dollar bills are also used in everyday transactions by countless U.S. citizens, despite the fact that a Pew Research report suggests that social trust rides high with less than half of the population. That is something really, really interesting to think about. And to further that a little bit, dollar bills can be used by all of these actors in these contradictory contexts where some can reject the authority of the issuing agency and actively work to overthrow it, because at the same time, everyone feels the same amount of trust in the issuing agency's willingness to keep its word and honor the promissory value that is printed on its currency. The motto of "In God We Trust," printed on the reverse of the $1 bill, is a reference to religion that is no accident. It serves as an additional reminder of the requirement for collective faith in the integrity of the system in order for it to work out. And fun fact, now that you've read that, you're already thinking like, well, so really it all comes down to trust, right? It really all comes down to trust and the fact that, let's see here. Consider how odd it would be, for instance, if the U.S. Treasury chose to track particular transactions and nullify the currency used because the country's political wing has beef with its participants, or how uncertain things become if I send you $10 over the net for an item I want to purchase, but you are only 50% sure that you will be able to use that $10 to buy something you want. So basically, it all comes down to trust, right? And not in each other, but really into the central authority. And since we've often noticed that a lot of parties have been, doubting that, and a part of that is because of quantitative easing, and explained in here a little bit more, they're explaining why quantitative easing will mostly always come when people lose their faith a little bit. And quantitative easing, take it very, very harshly, because it's never what people would want. It's always 9 out of 10 times bad for the economy and for everything really. Groman points out that something happened in the fourth quarter of last year and on March 20th of this year. Again, keep in mind this is 1 year earlier. Alarm bells have gone off at the Fed because for the first time in 70 years, government deficit matter. According to Groman, when the Fed funds went over interest on excess reserves, that was a sign that the United States government's deficits were getting so big and foreigners' interest in treasury bonds because FX had yields were so negative, though the interest from foreign private sector investors was so low that we are crowding out our own banking system. And so if the Fed does not inject a significant amount of dollar liquidity soon, be that via repo, be that via rate cuts, and I think you're going to be seeing QE probably in 6 to 9 months at the latest. Fun fact, right? Another fun fact, this was written in November, and I don't know exactly when this statement was made, but let's say that exactly what he thought about did not occur, and the quantitative easing was going to be max 6 months later. Well, I mean, it was made in November. Right now we are in and the July quantitative easing is still going on. So to a certain degree, he was really, really right? And basically the point he's trying to make here is that US debt is mattering because it gets so freaking high. And with all of that, some are speculating that the US is losing their grip, losing their control. The hedging costs for foreign investors to buy US treasuries went negative. In other words, for a Japanese or German private sector investor, and again, the US government's now critically reliant on foreign private sector investors to buy treasuries, the yield FX hedge turned negative. And this all has to do with what we read earlier here, where the European economy and the United States economy are really, really independent, or at least a little bit differently from each other. And the Europeans, they really, really like to buy over in America. But since this all happened where it all turned negative for a little while, that wasn't really happening. And thus, a lot of videos came out, a lot of content came out about the banking system falling apart, because where would they get yield from, right? This is not a one-way ticket. It's actually both ways, where it's almost impossible for any of these sectors to get a yield anywhere. And thus, they kind of get lost and the banking system doesn't work too much anymore. Here, they go on a little bit further by saying they're losing control because they can't really do anything. US deficits are growing so fast as they are, and because foreign official sector is not really buying all of the net, the foreign private sector is not buying enough. There is some buying unhedged, but not nearly enough to relevant, blah, 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 blah. And the important part about that is, again, the deficits are growing. There's really not that much they're doing against it, and people are losing their faith, right? They're like, all right, eventually, they're not going to be able to handle it all. And that is reflected by the gold price, which we have been seeing has been skyrocketing for the last months, ever since the big pandemic came along. Actually, ever since November came along here when this article was made. He asked, has the Fed lost control? Gold is going up. And actually, ever since that point, gold has only been going up, really. Honestly speaking, gold took a bit of a dip here in March when the economy, I guess, recovered a little bit again. I mean, crypto were doing good up to this point, and then everything crashed, right? Remember? Or a little bit differently, but you guys get it. But afterwards, it just kept on going. And really, the bullish trend line here was actually not broken. It's actually only broken sort of here where it's going exponential the last couple of days. But really, the trust had not really come back within the last, I guess, since November. It's still not been there. And really, it made me wonder exactly about what's to be coming. And by the way, one thing I just forget to mention, Federal Reserve will keep rates near zero until end 2022 as the recession continues. The Federal Reserve left rates unchanged on Wednesday and indicated that they will likely remain near zero until at least 2022 as the economy tries to recover from the severe recession. The big question is, are they going to go below zero? Because if they go below zero and stay there, then this whole situation I just explained will expand, where the negative yield will be everywhere, where it's going to be really, really difficult for an economy to recover. I want at zero or really, really near, but above zero is positive because, well, they could always lower it just a tiny bitty piece. And if you've ever had macroeconomics, you know that will stimulate the economy, which will be good. But in the end, the faith has just been lost. People are getting less and less faithful, and it's all pretty damn bad. And trust in money is going down lower and lower and lower because the trust in the central authority is getting lower. And since trust in money is getting lower, I mean, gold goes up double, which means, there's a double kind of plus for gold to go up because people are losing faith in money because the central authority behind it is kind of getting lost. And second of all, they're just losing faith in the government in general, which is another plus for gold. Having said all that, though, that's just a little bit of an idea that I very often like to think about, and it's something I want you guys to think about as well. But so you don't leave here empty-handed, XRP. I mean, I don't know if XRP has anything to do with the whole system I just described, because basically XRP thrives on the banks doing good, right? And with this whole system I just explained, banks are kind of falling apart. And by the way, there's a couple of cool videos on YouTube. If you type in interest rate below zero or something like that, you will most likely find a couple of reasons why the banking system is really based upon thin air. And also on my Twitter, I sometimes share videos explaining why I think the banking system is pretty dumb. However, for the banking system to ever be really, really revolutionized, we would need like a global acceptance of the truth. But for that, people need to be educated, which they won't be. And I guess for the next couple hundred years that they won't be. And thus Ripple and XRP can really thrive as banks won't disappear. Honestly speaking, they won't disappear. It's just maybe for a little while where people lose trust and gold goes up and the government might look to collapse, but really in the end they won't. I'm thinking about it very, very often, but I'm not convinced they will. It's just the idea that they could and that they are on the verge to that gets me motivated to talk about it more. But all right, one of the most important parts for XRP was here at about 24,480 or something like that. We just breached it, and I'm kind of wondering exactly how we're going to stay above there and how long. In candles, you can see it like this. We just breached it. I am waiting for confirmation for tomorrow before I really want to buy into it heavily. But still pretty bullish. One of the earlier points we broke already a couple of days ago was this one right here. And I guess one to state is, again, this point. Like you can see, it's it's all looking pretty damn positive. I'm pretty excited for what's to come. Yeah, it's all looking pretty damn juicy, guys. Gotta be completely honest with you. It's all looking pretty damn juicy. And yeah, XRP is looking to be a little bit of a longer run now. It's looking, at least. Some are saying, like Luigi here, this XRP pump is just a pump. Soon you will see a dump. Real utility is not yet ready. In my opinion, no bull run in Q3. No colossal price movements coming in the next few days, my friend. Leave the hopium behind as much as we want it to rise. And to that I'm saying, he is, to a certain degree, truthful, where he's right that it's not utility because it's not completely ready. To another degree, Green Eggs and Ham, I believe that's Sam I Am, right, says, I disagree with you on the dump. This is driven by dollar weakness. Things are going to continue getting worse as foreclosures take hold and unemployment runs out. Perhaps it will be worse elsewhere and people will flee to the safety of the dollar. I have my doubts. And that's something I'm thinking about as well. Something I'm really, really thinking about heavily, because that's also at least sounding very, very logical. And by the way, in that US debt clock, you can also check out the amount of foreclosures, the amount of unemployment. You can check out everything. So make sure you do that as well if you are thinking about it as well. And by the way, one of the videos I was mentioning just now about the banks is over on my Twitter. One of the ones is this one right here. The US government would never try to seize your Bitcoin or any other asset. Well, at one point in the past, they actually decided to take up all the gold. That is 1933. You can check it out right here. And another video that's really important for all of you to quickly watch is this one right here. It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. Check it out. It's really, really interesting. And I will leave it at that for today. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you press the like button and subscribe. And I will definitely see you guys again in another crypto video. Take care, everybody.